You're listening to Gary Spence, the man with the sweet rhythms on Solar Radio.
Yes, it's Gary Spence, the man with the sweetest rhythm. Solar Radio, your classic and 21st century soul station. And we're going to go live to the phones, and we're going to reach out. I'm going to reach out to David Pic Conley, and can I reach across the water and shake your hand, David? Good evening. Welcome to Solar. Sorry, it's my fault. I was pressing the wrong buttons. I'm really sorry about that.
Well, yeah. I guess your girl feels the same thing, huh?
Well, don't give my secrets away. Welcome. Can I was going to say you didn't hear me, but can I reach my hand across the sea and just shake your hand?
Absolutely, it's wide open for you.
And absolutely fantastic to speak to David Pic Conley. Now, we played a bit of Mandrill there. Tell us, how did that happen for you, Mandrill, back in the days, David?
I will tell you, it was one of those. I had two situations like that in my entire life, and they were wonderful. When I started out with Dave Townsend in a band called Port Authority, we used to play Mandrill and Kool and the Gang and Earth, Wind and Fire and all that stuff. So when I landed out in Los Angeles with Dave at that time, we were working on our own music, which was similar to Mandrill, but we lost our deal, so we were kind of out in Los Angeles doing nothing. And one of the guys in the band told me he met the guys from Mandrill in the studio. And I'm like, please take me there, take me there, take me there. And he said, no, I ain't going all the way back there. But he finally took me. I begged him. When he took me there, as soon as I walked in the studio, I act like I knew everybody in the band, because back then, you know everybody. You knew Carlos, you knew Rick, you knew Coffee Cave, you knew what they played, you know everything about their music. And they was like, who is this guy? But they liked me. and we just bonded right away. And they said, well, we're looking for a sax player. He said, do you play sax? I said, yeah. So I came in and auditioned, and they liked me, but they wanted a tenor sax. So I went to a pawn shop and bought a tenor sax and came back to the audition. And when I got back up there, because I knew all of their songs. Like, you don't understand. When you're a fan as a musician, you learn all the licks. And Carlos was one of my favorite flute players, and he was the one that my style is based off of. So meeting him and joining the band and playing on their records and touring the world, it was like, you got to know how amazing that was for me. It was just totally, totally amazing.
You still sound very excited now after all these years. Can you believe? Well,
you know why, too? But what happened just recently, because they're very fresh on my mind. I played with them, I think it was about a year or two ago. I think it's about a year ago in New York at B.B. King's. And Lou Wilson, who was the oldest brother of the Mandrill clan, he just died, like this year. So I went to the funeral out in Los Angeles, and it was probably about 3 or 4 months ago. So I got a chance to see all the guys again, you know what I mean, after so many years. It was that reunion. So, yeah, they're very fresh on my mind. Big kudos out to my man Lou Wilson, the trumpet players, one of the singers, and the lead, the oldest member of the brothers, the Wilson brothers. So, yeah, I got a little excited when you mentioned it.
Now, going way back, David, when did you first pick up the flute?
I actually picked up the flute right after high school, and I was sort of like trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And a friend of mine was walking down the street. His name was Mark Conway, and he had a flute in his hand, and he was selling it. And he opened it up, and it looked all pretty. I was like, wow, what you selling it for? He said, $10. So I said, $10, I'll buy that thing. And in my head, I could sell it for $25 because it looked so beautiful. So I went and gave him $10, and I took it home, which was right around the corner. I didn't even get a block away from the house. So I took it right back in the house, took it downstairs, and I opened up the case again. And I was like, wow, this is pretty. So that was the start, and that was back in 1972. And I figured out how to put the flute together. I just started fiddling with it, and next thing you know, my hands fell in place almost like it was supposed to be that way. And I knew that you play it like a bottle, like you're blowing into a bottle. So I started hitting it, and lo and behold, voila. Well, all of a sudden, it was making sound. And it seems like I knew how to play the same day, Gary. It was really amazing. So my mother was upstairs, and when I came upstairs for a break, she's looking at me and she says, Pic, I didn't know you played flute. I said, Mom, I didn't know I did either. She said, what thing? I said, I bought it from a friend of mine. She said, did you steal that flute? I said, no, Mom, I didn't steal it. She said, sure looks pretty. How you going to buy something like that for $10? I'm like, well, I got out of her way and continued playing it.
Have you still got that flute today?
No, that was my Armstrong flute. I gave it to a friend to get it repaired one time, And I think he was on drugs or something, and he sold it, and I never got it back.
So someone out there's got your flute, David. Give it back, please.
Yeah.
Give it back.
Yeah, it was a student model. I've quite progressed since then, and I have a wonderful flute right now. It's just totally gorgeous. I just love it.
Have you got it near? We could give it a bit of a blow.
Oh yeah, I keep it near.
Yep.
And I keep a blow. I don't know if you can hear that.
I could. Yes, it's lovely. It sounded like a flute to me. Sounded like a flute to me, David.
Yeah, it's definitely a flute. It's definitely a flute.
Now let's come up.
It's my favorite instrument.
Is it really? Do you play any other instruments apart from a flute?
Well, yeah, on most of the Surface records, I played very little flute, so you would hear it kind of going in and out, but I played mostly bass synthesizer and drum programming for the group and some synthesizer work. So, the keyboards were very much in the fold, and of course, I've always been able to program drums from the very beginning. So that those kind of the team was actually between me, Dave, and Bernard. It was really mostly me on bass and drums. Dave played guitar and keyboard, and Bernard sang, and of course, tremendous lyrics and melodies. But at the same time, Bernard could play bass, guitar, and guitar and keyboards as well, as he showed in the song Lately, where he actually played the bass in one of the guitars, and Dave played the other guitar, and I played the drums, and Dave played the keyboard. So, and then of course Dave plays everything as well, So we all kind of like had our spots, but sometimes if we went in and did something against the spot, it wasn't against because it just was adding to the flavor, adding to the formula.
Sounded like you had fun back in the days, as well as you do today.
So much fun with 3 people in the room. It's so much fun. Now we do, like, for example, Tim Jones, I send him music tracks overseas by the internet, and he'll send them back doing his thing, and I'll do my thing on his tracks. So it's all internet-based right now as we're doing music today. We're still playing, but we're not in the room together like we used to. And that certainly added a lot of flavor to me.
Now, we spoke off air about bringing back some memories, Falling in Love. Tell us about this track we're about to play then, David.
Falling in Love was Ken Carey from South Soul Records always thought me and Dave Townsend stumbled on the song, and perhaps we did at the time. So we had took a break. I had left Mandrill at the time, and Dave Townsend was still playing with the Isley Brothers at the time, but we would always, after we go off the road or whatever, we'd always get together at my house. So he came over one day on break with the Isley Brothers, and I had already left Mandrill, so I had a little studio set up at the house, small, but we had to find the roads and the drum machine. And so I had a little bass line and the drum beat, and Dave had put some chords on top of it, and all of a sudden we were listening to a nice little rhythm track that we never heard before. And I don't even know how it came about, but it's just that magic of 2 people being in the room at the same time, I think, going back to that. And then Dave started singing this hook to the chorus. I'm falling in love with you. So when he was singing that, it was like, wow, this sounds really cool, right? So we put that part down, and then I took the mic and I started singing the first verse, right? And so I put a little rough thing on the first verse, and then Dave turned around and put a little rough on the second verse. And then when the bridge came around, I just put the little bridge down, and the next thing you know, we had a full song. So then we were looking for some girls to sing it because it was a high key, and we was just trying to sing out of our range. But at least the song was down. So we ran into Karen Copeland, who was, I knew her before because she went to the high school with that. I didn't go to that high school, but I knew her. So she came over and auditioned. While she was auditioning to that song, it ended up to be those vocals on that little small 4-track machine that actually got us the deal on that song, because when she came over to audition, she sang the song so nice that we didn't change it. So I went into the studio one day, invited by Steve Washington, who was the leader of the group called Slave, Just a Touch of Love, that particular group.
Mm.
And, I played on their records through Steve. Ken Carey, the president of South Soul Records, was in the studio at the time. We were all in the lounge. And I was talking to Starlina Young about this song that me and Dave just wrote. We was, excited about it, but we didn't know what to do. But we were telling her about it. And Ken Carey was there, and he says, "Oh, so you got a hot song, huh?" And I says, "I think so." He said, "Let me hear it." I said, "You want to hear it?" I said, "Yeah, let's go in Studio B." We go in Studio B. I have a little cassette, puts the cassette in, and he blasts it out, and he turns around. Doesn't say anything through the whole song. He turned around and looked at me. He said, "You know what? You do have a good song here. Why don't you come into the studio and do it as a record, and I'll put it out?" I'm like, "Huh?" He said, "I'll put it out if you come in the studio and do it as a real record." And that was my start of falling in love, because we did that, and we brought the record to him, and he gave me a check for $4,000 to finish it all up, and that was the budget. And we went back into the studio and did a mix that we thought we was doing something really cool. But when he got the mix, he listened to it, and he says, "Well, you know what, guys? I got somebody else I might want to just try to mix on it." He was being soft on us. We did a horrible job on it, basically, Gary. And it was a nice song, but it wasn't coming across. So he's David the Chef Pettibone, and who I didn't know who he was at the time. So then he invited us back up to the office. Me and Dave went up there, and then he said, "This is the mix. Here's your mix first." And he played our mix, and I was like, "Yeah, that's hot." Then he played Chef Pettibone's mix, right?
Mm.
Dave Townsend was silently blown away. I was hearing something so new that my brain just didn't accept it. So then Ken said, "So what do you think?" I said, "Well, I still think I like our mix better." And he said, "I'll tell you what. Let's put out Shep's mix first. Let's see how it does."
Mm.
And so I said, "Okay, he the boss." So we're walking down. Dave still hasn't said anything to me yet.
Mm.
So we're walking down, coming to, I think the office is up on 50-something street in New York. So we're walking down the street. Finally, he breaks the silence. He says, "Pic," he said, "I think you need to take another listen to that shit when you get home." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I ain't never heard nothing like that in my entire life. It's like that." I'm like, "Really?" So he kind of reeled me back into reality. And when I got home with the cassette that Ken gave us, and I listened to it, I was like, wow, you know what? If anything, it's beautiful. My ego still wasn't coming down yet. But then after the third listen, I was like, wow, Dave, you're right, man. So what was I thinking before? What was I thinking? I couldn't believe, I guess because we thought it was our baby, we kind of liked it. And I'm saying we. I'm bringing him into it, but it was me. I couldn't fathom that somebody did a better job than us on our first song. And it was amazing then. And when I listen to it, if I turn it on my studio right now, my head gets pushed back, and I'm like, wow, what was we doing back then to make things sound so beautiful?
Let's take a listen. David, and we come back to you live. Here we go.
You bet.
There you go. That's the track we was talking about. My special guest, David Pic Conley, on the phone from Surface, and bringing back the vocals on that, David. Well, it was very special indeed from Karen.
Yeah, they were very special. God bless her. I don't know if you know that she did pass away years ago.
No, I didn't know that actually, David. So, but we got.
Oh yeah, So when I hear, I send the blessings out to her and family.
Well, I think she's looking down on us, David.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Or up at us, wherever. Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
No.
The universe is infinite in all directions to me. I'm sorry. It might have sounded derogatory, but it wasn't meant that way.
No, it wasn't. It didn't sound that way, Dave. Now, we're going to go to the second Wave album from Surface, and we're going to play Closer Than Friends. And there must be a story behind this track before we give it a spin, David.
Well, Closer Than Friends, the story behind it, basically, we were going into the second album. And everybody thought, that sophomore jinx, but we didn't pay too much attention to that when we were working on the second Wave album. That song was originally supposed to have been You Are My Everything. And then it didn't fit the way I felt like it fit on another track that we had, which ended up to be You Are My Everything. So Bernard came in and put a brilliant vocal lines all through it. The lyrics and the melodies was all written by Bernard Jackson. And somehow that tone, that key, it fits so well that I think that's not only my favorite record, it still sounds just great on the radio today when I listen to it.
Let's give it a spin and have a listen, and we'll come bang up to date with the Lovetown Allstars album, which we've got to talk about.
All right now.
Okay, here we go. Closer Than Friends.
If you don't know how I feel for you, it's time I let all feelings show. I love you and I'll never let you go, no, baby. Right now, we're just friends, but I pray someday you'll surrender to love so tender. I won't push you as long as you know that my love is true. Get closer to you, baby. Hey, closer than just friends. I want to get closer to you, baby. Hey, closer than just friends. How about you? How about you? It's hard to explain when you're close to me. I get a warm sensation inside. I can't deny this. I want to try it each and every time you come by. Girl, I don't wanna lose your love by putting my cards on the table. You know I'm thankful for what we have, but I have feelings inside. They're so strong I can't hide. Get closer to you, baby. I want to get closer than just friends. Get closer to you, baby. Yeah, closer than just friends. How about you? I know you're probably thinking that you heard this so many times before. But girl, when you're here, I want you to stay. And when you're gone, I want you even more every day. Girl, I don't wanna lose your love by putting my cards on the table. You know I'm thankful for what we have, but I have feelings inside. They're so strong I can't hide. No, baby. baby. How about you, baby? How about you, my baby, my baby? Oh, oh, do you, lady? Closer than just friends, me and you. Woo! I want to. How about you? Nothing I won't do to get close to you, baby.
We don't often play the whole track on this show, but hope David didn't mind, really. We just had to play the whole version of that track. Surface. Well, what did that do to you? Listen to it again. I know it's on the phone, but...
I always love it. Always. That's one of my favorite Surface songs. Always with Bernard on it. I always love that one.
The vocals
I
as
listen
well.
to it quite a bit.
Yeah. On a big sound system, that would be great, wouldn't it? A nice big sound system with a bass bin, big sub bass bin.
Yeah. It just sounds great. It really does.
Now, coming up to date, we've got to thank Tim Jones, because he's a very special person, isn't he, David?
Oh, that's my man. We've been hooked up from the first time I met him. So we're going back a couple of years now. We've been just best friends ever since. And of course, good music mates.
Yeah. And good friend. Well, actually, you got another mate, Gary Spence now. You got another family member.
See, now we got a new family member. I hope to come out there very soon. I hope to be out there in November, actually.
Brilliant. You could shake my hand, and perhaps I can give you your Christmas card in advance. Is that all right? A nice big Christmas card.
There you go, see? I love Christmas.
Now, tell us about this track. Because it's in our chart at the moment, the album, the Lovetown Allstars, #1 on our chart we do, which is fabulous at the moment. 2 weeks at #1, featuring you on this track called Superstar. You know, I mean, obviously, how did you hook up with Tim to get this track on the album?
Well, the track, the hooking up with Tim happened from Cliff Dawson, where he was producing Cliff Dawson's album, and I came over with Cliff to produce his vocals for him. So that's how Tim and I actually met, through Cliff Dawson. And I played him some of the old stuff that Dave and I were doing, you know, back in the day, and that was one of the tracks. And as soon as he heard it, he was like, "Oh my God, man, this is so funky." I'm like, "It is? This is like we did that like back in, you know, like 80, 81 or something like that." So, you know, getting used to it again was something, but he loved it. He said, "Man, I want to do this track." So when he was getting ready to do the album, he asked if he could go on and redo it, and he did it. He redid the track and sent it over to us. And the singer that I use out here, Sean Fever, you know, we sat and wrote the song over again, because I don't remember how the song went when Dave and I originally wrote it, to actually tell you the truth. So we just sat down there and rewrote it. And I gave Fever a bit of some rope on the writing, since he was going to be singing it. I had a different concept in it originally for the verses, but it came out so nice. I said, you know what? I could just drop what I had before as far as the verse melody. So I had to get used to it myself, just like you guys. And I ended up really liking it. And I liked the performance. I liked what Tim did to it. And I'm not sure if I like the flute part, to be honest with you, Gary. I was struggling with it a little bit. And as a matter of fact, I had to do it a couple of times. The first time, Tim was like, "Man, you're not putting that Pic Conley thing on it, man. You sounding like the hustle guy or something." So I did it again, but you know, I ended up kind of like pretty much liking it, you know. But I think I could have did a better job on the flute part. But I hope everybody else likes it. That's just a personal thing. You're a very honest person, David. I've listened to the interview, and you speak your mind. I kind of have to, but don't get me wrong. The record is nice. The record is nice. I wouldn't have let it go out if I didn't like it.
No.
You know, that's just the way I am.
Well, it's number one in the chart.
Tim is gracious enough.
Mm.
Wow. Well, how about that?
Yeah.
Shut up, Mr. Conley. You don't really know what you're talking about.
And we hope to see you in November coming over. You know, what time in November?
Yeah, at the Steve Arrington show.
Mm.
The Steve Arrington show.
Mm.
Tim is the band.
Yep.
Tim Jones is the band that's rocking it.
Mm. I'm going to come along. We could have a cup
The
of tea.
band, my man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David, for your time, and we'll see you in November in the UK, probably in the rain, but we'll see you, and you'll be doing your stuff.
That's great, man.
Thank you so much for being there tonight, and we're going to finish off with the superstar track. Stay on the line where you are, David. Don't go away. I'm staying
right here.
Stay right here. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, and we're coming back with the big song from that Lovetown Allstars album. Just before we play the track, we bring David back. He would like to say something that he forgot to say. Back on the air, David.
Well, you put me on the spot, but here's what I wanted to say to the guys that perhaps might have a little handicap and trouble by making it out there on whatever interest that you have. I have been legally blind since the late 90s, so when you saw me on video, saw me on stage back in the day, I could see pretty mildly, but never 20/20.
Mm.
But the point is, with all my successes that I've been through, I've never let that be a part of just putting me down. I've always used it to kind of move me forward, because you have to work a little bit harder when you have a handicap, as some of you guys might know.
Mm.
So I just wanted to let everybody know about that part of my life. If it inspires you, that's really the main reason, because right at this point in my life, like the music of falling in love, you know, I want to continue to inspire people and lift them up.
Mm.
God bless you all.
Okay. Thank you, David.
You're welcome, Gary.
Stay where you are.
Been searching for my leading lady. In walks the woman of my dreams. So I said, no audition, 'cause girl, you've got the bar. If you want it, it's yours. You be playing a pretty sexy lady that came and see me and give me back my heart. That girl's a superstar. She's ready for love. That girl has everything most men dream of. 'Cause she's my superstar. Without a doubt in my mind, no one compares to my superwoman. One look in her eyes and she'll make your heart melt. A kiss from her lips is so good for your hair. That girl keeps my heart racing. No audition, girl, you got it with ease. If you want it, I'm hoping that you'll accept the rule that's leaving lady in my home movies. That girl's a superstar. She's ready for love. That girl has everything most men dream of. 'Cause she's my superstar. Without a doubt in my mind, no one compares to my superwoman. 'Cause she's my superstar. She's ready